Hello and welcome to Mindshifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Monday, December 6th, 2021. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the Start Here link in the upper left-hand corner, it'll take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. It's a tool I've used to great effect for over 17 years to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to help me turn any negative emotional experience into part of the infallible guidance system that each one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file download. Download it, copy it, use it as often as you'd like. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness and get access to a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet, an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and a copy of the Dragon and Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do that soon and often because that brings them, usually brings more comments, questions, testimonials, and we'd be happy to hear those. Give us a call at 563-999-3581 and press 1. That'll put a little icon of a hand by your phone number, and I'll announce you by your area code. We're also doing the Course in Miracles workbook lessons this year, and today is the 340th day of the year. But I would like to back up to the 338th day, which was Saturday, because that lesson is near and dear to my heart and the core of these teachings. The lesson simply reads, I am affected only by my thoughts. And the commentary reads, It needs but this to let salvation come to all the world. For in this single thought is everyone released at last from fear. Now have we learned that no one frightens us, and nothing can endanger us. We have no enemies, and we are safe in all external things. Our thoughts can frighten us, but since these thoughts belong to us alone, we have the power to change them and exchange each fear for a happy thought of love. We are the ones who have crucified ourselves. Yet creation has planned that its creation shall be redeemed. Your plan is sure. It's only ours, only yours. All other plans will fail. And we have thoughts that will frighten us until we learn that we have given them the only thought that leads to salvation. That is the thought of our true nature as love. So that was from a couple days ago, and today's lesson simply reads, I can be free of suffering today. Creator, I thank you for today and for the freedom I am certain it will bring. This day is holy, for today your offspring will be redeemed. Our suffering is done. We will hear your voice for directing us to find Christ's vision through forgiveness. And again, in this work, forgiveness means the dismantling of fear and the dismantling of distorted perceptions of what is not true. Be glad today, be glad. There is no room for anything but joy and thanks today. Our Creator has created us in its likeness and image, and we are truly made of love, and can extend that love in each new present moment. It's a choice. So the Course in Miracles experiment lesson from Pam Grout, lesson 340, simply reads, it's titled, Me Too, hashtag Me Too, Escaping the Abusive Relationship of My Ego and Its Henchmen. She quotes John O'Donohue, the famous poet, as saying, your story doesn't hold a candle to who you really are. And Pam writes, I've heard all the stories, Weinstein, CK, yada, yada, and here's what I know. There's not a misogynist alive that's half as bad as the abuser in my brain. Perhaps you know him, the voice that tells me everything and everybody else that's living and breathing that something is wrong, that something needs to be fixed. A Course in Miracles calls this voice the ego. It is the opposite of love, and it shows up as fear. It's a big fat liar, and pardon my French, but it's full of caca. It runs on three main themes: do something, you're screwed, and run. It shoves us away from what we've been put on this earth to do, to love, to connect, to create ridiculously beautiful things. In lesson 340, I can be free of suffering today. It tells me there's a much more compelling voice, one that knows how to be free. So let's celebrate today and be glad, and know there is no room for anything but joy and thanks today. So that's our Course in Miracles workbook lesson and our Course in Miracles experiment commentary. And as usual, we have time for conversation. I've had a number of things come to my attention to share for today. And I'll start with this idea. It seems like the Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Vivek Murthy, M-U-R-T-H-Y, has been either talking to people who've read the Course in Miracles or has read the Course in Miracles. And Dr. Murthy was being interviewed along with groundbreaking neuroscientist Richard Davidson by Krista Tippett last week. And that was an interview that I listened to yesterday. And here's the intro. The intro written by Krista Tippett is, what if the future of well-being is about, quote, tipping the scales in the world away from fear and toward love, close quotes. And what if it's a Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Vivek Murthy, who talks this way? You heard that right. The Surgeon General of the United States has said the future of well-being is about tipping the scales in the world away from fear and toward love. And in the interview, Krista draws him out, along with this groundbreaking neuroscientist and friend of his, Richard Davidson. And they carry deep intelligence and vision from the realms of science and public health, expansively understood. They explore all we're learning to help us move forward as a species. This Zoom event was sponsored by the Center for Healthy Minds. And if you go to the Center for Healthy Minds .org, then you get a whole bunch of resources. The primary thing on the website says, new research grant hopes to improve the well-being of healthcare professionals. And the Center for Healthy Minds is run through the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And they've got a COVID-19 well-being toolkit and resources available for free. And they've got all kinds of micro techniques that we can use to restore our well-being, to build our well-being, to move away from stress. They talk about some of those in the interview. You can find the full interview at onbeing.org, onbeing.org. And I encourage you to give it a listen. I encourage you to take heart when you hear things like the Surgeon General of the United States is saying the future of well-being is going to be amplified by moving away from fear and toward love. So, how about that for a note of hope? A note of hope. So our call-in number is 563-999-3581. Call that number, press 1. We can have a conversation. What's on your mind for today? How would it serve you to discuss what I just read or anything else we've talked about in the almost 11 years on this show? The other thing I was going to share is the Pema Chodron book, a part of it that's talks about the 5 strengths in Buddhism from Pema Chodron's work. And it's interesting because to really understand Buddhism for me has been like learning a different language, even when they're just using English words. So instead of, I'm not talking about, figuring out what Bodhisattva means or what Mahayana means. I'm talking about when they say, here are the 5 strengths in English: strong determination, familiarization, the seed of virtue, reproach, and aspiration. So if I think about those words in English and the associations of meaning that I have for them, I would probably think for 100 years and not come across the explanation that Pema Chodron gives in her book. I think the title of the book is Start Where You Are. And yet, they're very useful, and I can see how they really flesh out the concepts that are so similar to the work we're doing here on Mindshifters Radio and our Mindshifters support groups. Yeah, the title of Pema's book is Start Where You Are. And if you just do a search for Pema Chodron, the 5 Truths, or the 5 strengths, not truths, the 5 strengths, then you can find this, this PDF of the list of them and then some descriptions. And in the book, she's talking about a series of slogans, and each slogan carries a deep teaching. And so, in this chapter, she's talking about how when you learn how to live, you learn how to die. There's nothing doom and gloom about it. It's just life. So strong determination, number 1, this is the first of 5 strengths, and it's connected to taking a very strong stand. It's not about I'm right and everybody else is wrong. The strong stand is represented by the quote, I will maintain my basic egolessness, my basic sanity, even in my death. So that's the first strength. The strength to understand that I can survive and even thrive when I watch ego and I'm not driven by ego, when I allow ego to run its course and not drag me around. This is, these teachings are not about destroying the ego or attacking the ego. These teachings understand that there is a purpose to everything that is part of our existence, and understanding the purpose of ego, putting it in proper perspective, is critically important to our mental and emotional and physical health. When I read this and was listening to the discussion from her book about the egolessness, I remembered how one time when I went to the Michael Rice's intensive center down in very, very southern Missouri, almost Arkansas. When I was down there, I was so overwhelmed. And just the first night, late evening and night that I was there, I was just amazed at how many people were bragging about how small their ego was. And I woke up the next morning with this, I don't know, what do you call it, a dream, a vision, a scenario in my head in which, in the dream, we were gathered in the main building at Heartland. It's called the Heart Center. It's where most of the classes are taught and where the meals are served and prepared, etc. And we were in that meeting waiting for a class to start, and we heard this horrible noise coming from another building next door. And Jeannie was, this is in my dream, Jeannie was there trying to calm everybody down and saying, oh, don't worry about it. And as she's talking, things are being thrown through the windows. It's like an all-out brawl is going on in this building adjacent to the Heart Center. And so I spoke up and I asked, I said, what's going on over there? Do they need help? And Jeannie says, oh, no, not at all. They got one of those new machines that measures ego, and they're just having a discussion about whose ego is smaller. I loved that dream. And so, as I'm listening to Pema Chodron talk about ego, it's not about destroying ego. It's about understanding the process of ego. It's about understanding what Guy Finley would call a mechanical level of mind. It has a purpose in our lives. And yet, if we identify with it, if we elevate it to the level of master, we create more pain and suffering in our lives exponentially than if we understand it for what it is and use it appropriately as a tool. So, this first strength, the first of 5 strengths, is strong determination, stated as, I will maintain my basic egolessness. This doesn't say I'm going to go out and knock other people down out of their ego state. This is, I will keep the focus internal, and I will work to maintain my basic egolessness state, my basic sanity, and I will do this even in my death. So that's quite a tall order for those of us who live in a culture that has been conditioning us to identify with ego and to argue and fight and be the victor in most competitions, and everything's about competition. So, the second strength is familiarization, and this is developing a general sense of mindfulness and awareness so that we don't panic when we're dying, either when we're dying to ego or when we're noticing that the physical body is functioning in a way that is not as vigorous and vivacious as it used to be. Getting really, really familiar with oneself and one's internal process. This is about acknowledging that there's a lot to learn about me and my mental gymnastics and how much I've identified with them over the years. There's a lot to be said for self-knowledge. Guy Finley likes to say there's no such thing as bad self-knowledge. Many of us run from introspection, being alone, spending true quiet time. Many of us use the drug of busyness and distraction endlessly, as though spending time alone would be the death of us. And so understanding that familiarization, becoming familiar with the workings of my own mind, is the only way to truly live. And as they talk about in this work, when I learn how to live, I learn how to die. That living from that mindful state is the only way to truly live. The third strength is called the seed of virtue. And this is connected with not resisting, not taking any kind of break from your fear of death. Yeah, I'm going to have some fear come up. I'm going to have fear come up when I just think about releasing my attachment to ego. Why? Because I've been conditioned that that's my true self. So I'm going to have fear come up about losing my true self, dying, if you will. This seed of virtue, seed, S-E-E-D, of virtue, has to do with overcoming your attachment to your belongings. You know, when they ask people to, be their mentor in the Buddhist tradition, they form this relationship, and it begins with the student giving the master a gift. And what they call for is a gift that is of something that you truly, it's just enough that you don't really want to give it. If it's money, it's a little bit more than you're comfortable giving. If it's one of your prized possessions, it's one you really don't want to be without. And that's the beginning of the path. The beginning, because it's understood that the more I'm attached to physical belongings, the less I am actually in the process of learning who I am. The less possibility there is for me to truly understand my nature and the nature of the beings of brilliance and light that I share this journey with. The fourth strength is called reproach. And this means realizing that the so-called ego doesn't really exist. It's just a collection of thoughts. Therefore, you can say, what am I afraid of anyway? Go away, ego. Come, ego. Doesn't matter. I am not attached to you because you're just a pattern of thoughts. And so I learned to see very clearly that I am not my thoughts, and they are not me. I learned to identify fully with the present moment living and observation. And only in that way do I learn more about who I really am. There are some deep spiritual teachings where the master, the teacher, all he or she does is continually ask the student, who are you? Who is it that's listening? Who is it that's answering? Who are you? Over and over and over again. So the reproach means understanding that I am not my thoughts about myself. I am not the ego, and the ego only exists as a collection of thoughts about me. It's not a separate entity. And the last of the five strengths is aspiration. It's realizing that you have tremendous strength and desire to continue to open yourself up. Be wide open, as Dale Ellen Hoffman would call us to be. Therefore, you have nothing to regret when you die. You've already accomplished everything that you can accomplish. And the only way to accomplish everything you can accomplish is to be wide open. And again, this is where it's like, for me, it's like learning a new language. What does that mean, wide open? What's the essence of the message that's being conveyed here when they say be wide open? I didn't have that taught to me as I was growing up. I know about open windows and open doors. I don't have any idea what it means to be wide open mentally, emotionally, spiritually, personally. So for me, it's like learning a whole new language to learn about these teachings. In much the same way, it's like learning a whole new language when I go to read the reality management worksheet and understand what the concept of sustained incoherence is from David Bohm's work as it's contained in the reality management worksheet. It's like learning a whole new language to learn about what is meant by the phrase ruka dukuja. What really happens inside me mentally and emotionally when I choose to cancel a goal? Before I encountered this work, I didn't have any goal canceling teachings. I was only taught to do two things with goals my entire life: set them and achieve them. And it was a whole new set of learning for me to understand that there's a way to have 4 or 5 different skills that my mind can do in relation to goals. I can frame a goal before setting it. I can set a goal for attention throughout the day. I can set a goal, or I can select a goal for sustained attention throughout the day. Then I can set a goal. I can achieve a goal. And perhaps most importantly for this work, I can actually cancel a goal consciously. And an entire powerful dynamic occurs within my mind when I do that. It's a concept radically different than anything I had ever been introduced to prior to this work. And it's the core of what makes this set of tools so powerful and productive. And yet, when I first talk about it, I don't even understand the meaning of it or the power of what can happen if I actually apply it. And the first few times I do it, I've got no concept of how dynamically that process can change my life for the better. So it's like learning a new language, and then it's like practicing a skill that I didn't even know existed. And then as I build that skill and my mind starts to function in different ways, the more I practice the skill, the more I see the benefits and challenges. There are challenges to this work. There are challenges to my sense of who I am and challenges to my conditioned way of thinking. And I can just tell you from personal experience that it's worth the challenge. Personally, it has been positively life-changing over and over and over again to learn about these tools and apply them in my life. So there's our extended introduction. We've got about 25 minutes left. Time for a comment or a question. 563-999-3581. Call that number and press 1, and we can have a conversation. What's on your mind? How can I support you today? What was good about your weekend or challenging about your weekend that you would like to share with us? 563-999-3581. Call that number and press 1, and we can have a conversation. I wanted to make sure that I mentioned the, what's it called? Center for Healthy Minds, because as I mentioned, they talk about it somewhat in the interview with Krista Tippett, but they have what Krista was so happy about. They have micro practices for well-being, little things you can do. One of them that the neurosurgeon was talking about is he looks at his schedule in the morning after his meditation or whatever, his morning routine, and he looks at his schedule and just takes a moment or two, a minute or so, to think about every person he's going to be interacting with as he goes through his itinerary for the day, and send them blessings. Think about them as people and bless them, much like, my interpretation of it is very much like the gentle art of blessing that we were introduced to from Pierre Pradervand. And the website has a Healthy Minds program, an app that you can put on your phone, and a bunch of little things like choosing appreciation, like Richard Davidson talks about. As he looks at his calendar and sees a list of people he's going to have appointments with or meetings with, he thinks about the individual people and just has appreciation for each person. As I said, when I listened to it, my mind went to the gentle art of blessing practice as outlined by Pierre Pradervand from the book Gentle Art of Blessing, and from the interview we did here on Mind Shifters Radio, which is available absolutely free in the archives of the show, but also on the mindshiftersacademy.org website under the, I think I called it Best of Audio tab. And currently there are only 6 files there, so it's easy to navigate. And the 6th of 6 files there, the last one listed is the interview with Pierre Pradervand. So, we still have time for a comment or question. How can we support you today? 563-999-3581. The last resource we were talking about is the Center and to find that, it's centerhealthyminds.org. So there's no word "for" in the web address. centerhealthyminds.org. And if you click on the Wellbeing Toolkit and Resources and scroll down, you can actually see that there's an Android app. I think it works for both Apple and Android. And all kinds of well-being tools listed in that website for free. Their idea is to really give people resources, much like the very practical tools that Michael and Jeannie offer, to help people proactively improve their well-being. And they say on the website, we take the best of learnings from neuroscience, contemplative traditions, and skill-based learning and put it in easy-to-use packages to support the well-being of everyone. You can do this for yourself, or you can bring it to your office. Whichever the form, everything starts with the proprietary framework of the 4 pillars of health and a healthy mind: awareness, connection, insight, and purpose. And they talk about those 4 when they're doing the interview with Krista Tippett. And one of the parts of the interview that was really good for me is that instead of just talking about connection, Mr. Davidson is talking about appreciation, gratitude, affection, etc. So it's the quality of connection. It's a loving, cherishing, appreciating, a wide open connection. It's not just being in the same vicinity as somebody. It's not being in a situation where everybody's on their iPhones next to each other. It's actually being awake and aware and tuned in and connected in a way that is full of appreciation, gratitude, understanding. So area code 513, you're in the air. Who do we have?
Hello, Dr. Tim. This is Urate.
Hello. Well, hello, Urate. How are you today?
I thought I'll check in a little bit after my big work that I got done almost a week ago. So when you asked, how's it going? I would say the energy is definitely moving. I contemplated my responsibility letter to Tom's daughter, and I sent it out. I have not heard anything, but I'm feeling peaceful. So it was for me, and I just trust that everything's gonna, resolve in the ways that are most best for everyone. But I feel like when I agreed to say that, I'm accepting all the healing that might come with it, and I didn't mean that I'm going to start downloading COVID in my body. So I guess that was part of it.
Oh, are you saying that you have COVID?
Right.
Symptoms? Okay.
Right. And I was like, it's really interesting because the whole situation was pretty much about that, right? So we were resolving those different way of seeing with Tom's daughter, and misperceptions and misinterpretations, and so interestingly enough, that I am like trying to integrate this as easily as I am integrating the whole change after I send the letter and I did the worksheets. So, yeah, I feel like I'm upgrading my system. I'm shedding some unnecessarily things and visualizing that this virus is really like eliminating all the debris within me at the physical, emotional, spiritual, mental level, that anything that I don't need, so I could upgrade myself.
Well, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. I feel like I'm building natural antibodies. I am definitely practicing lots of self-care, and I'm doing really good. I hope it stays like that. And, working with that and visualizing and trusting that my thoughts of it has the most power of everything. So trying to create what I want with this whole situation.
Well, I know that that is what lots of people listening will be sending your way in terms of loving thoughts and blessings for that to happen. And we know that, when you've got the Surgeon General of the United States and one of his best friends talking about the need for waking up to the fact that wellness, what's going to take us to the next level of wellness, is moving away from fear and towards love. There's a real power in that. And it's a real power that's actually been, there are, the hard science research is validating what the spiritual teachers have known for thousands of years.
True.
So congratulations on your willingness to do that work, and I'll hold the space that it's a loving resolution with your Tom's daughter.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it was really helpful. I just wanted to thank for the group, and for everybody in the group holding the space for me and for the guidance. It was profound work. I was ready, and I moved the energy. I felt very motivated. I had a very powerful dream, like right before I contemplated the letter, and because I did the work, and then I contemplated the letter on Thursday, and then on Friday I came up with the symptoms. But I had a dream of me playing with Tom's daughter and her two granddaughters, and we were all just happily playing there, and and I'm ready to leave. And there's in the back of my mind of like, oh, there is something unresolved. There is still unresolved energy between us. So I kind of felt this a little unease that I know that I didn't feel when I was playing with them. And her husband gave me this big hug, and then he whispered in my ear and says, Urate, you guys have to resolve this with Tess, you know. You have to do this. And so when I woke up, I just like, okay, this is a good motivation to sit and do the writing. So when I sent the letter, I meditated prior. I asked to be, you know, centered from love and knowing that I don't have expectations like for anything or anyone to change or this letter make a difference. I'm just sharing where I am. And suddenly this deep peace landed in my being, which felt really good.
Great.
And I'm there. Yeah.
And what? I didn't hear that last part.
And I said I'm still there, you know. It's like that is still there. I just trust, you know, and now it is easier for me to really like have compassion for their process, whatever that is, for her process. And to accept that, you know, all I can do, you know, I cannot do anything for others. I can just do my own work and trust that everybody else will do their own in their own times, or they won't do it. And I have to be okay with either one.
That's a good plan.
Yeah.
That's the essence of the power struggle model that says I create my power struggles when I focus more of my attention on things I don't have any control over and less of my attention on the things that I actually can control.
Yeah.
And literally the shift of my attention away from things that I don't have any control over is, you know, the path to liberty and being more open and going with the flow. And then it gives me the space to focus my attention on the things I actually do have some control over and then use them in the most productive and loving way I can to improve my experience of life in the moment.
Indeed. And I think that's what the Tuesday group was really helpful for me, because it helped me to shift from, you know, okay, I feel powerless because it's all in their hands, to really like take the power back and focus towards me and how I feel about that situation and doing work around my feelings. That's what it brought the peace part. And like Great. It shifted the focus from how can I fix them to like, oh, it's really about me here, you know, like, so I should be grabbing my gift versus worrying how to change them.
Wonderful. Well, that's the essence, and if people look at it that way, if the people can put the filter on it, every tool that Michael and Jeannie offer is a tool I apply to myself, not to others. If I think somebody else is out of line, I apply the tool to my perception of that and then actively work to remove anything that's not loving that arises in my perception, and that's how my life gets better.
Well, I'm a life testimony.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for the call. Anything else we can do to support you today?
No, I think I'm good. I'm doing great. So I just wanted to share that where I am and my story. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate your sharing it, and I just had the thought that you might want to share the letter with, I don't know what your actual content of the letter is, but if it's worded, you know, well and it's depersonalized, so you're not outing or identifying somebody else. It might be a letter that Jeannie would want to make available as a template for people if it's been that useful for you.
Of course. And I'll reach out to Jeannie.
Wonderful.
Yeah, good idea. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Be gentle with yourself. Heal well and quickly, and we'll talk to you again before too long.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Blessings.
So we have about 8 minutes left, 563-999-3581. The tool Urate was talking about is the responsibility communication tool. It's another tool that's available absolutely free on whyagain.org. If you go to that website, click on the Start Here link in the upper left-hand corner. When you get to that next page, just keep scrolling down, and you will find the responsibility communication tool. I believe the way they have them listed these days is the rules, responsibility communication rules. And they were revised in 2018, and there are 3 examples of responsibility communication letters that were written in alignment with those tools that you can download and read. So there's the actual worksheet itself that you can download, and there are the 3 examples. Maybe if Urate wants to share hers and Jeannie thinks it's in alignment, maybe there'll be 4. But the purpose of that is for me to learn to step myself through using the first 6 rules or statements or guidelines or questions, and really get clear for myself about what I'm doing with my thoughts, with my perception, that's causing my pain, fear, sadness, upset, whatever the negative emotion is. And for me, that tool is mostly for myself. Most of the time when I write those responsibility communication letters, I don't send them to the other person because that wasn't the point. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm not trying to change anybody else. I'm trying to get very clear about what I'm doing with my thought process that's creating the pain or fear or sadness or any other negative emotion that I'm experiencing, and that my mind is busy trying to tell me was caused by somebody else. So sometimes when people do that, they then go ahead and communicate it to another person. If they've got enough of a relationship, if it's a valuable enough relationship, if there's a basis for communication in that relationship to begin with, then people might go ahead and send the responsibility communication to the person that they've been interacting with, where they feel they've got some kind of a disconnect in their communication or relationship. And that's what Urate did. And as she said, it's not about getting a certain response from the other person. It was about Urate getting very clear with herself and feeling completely congruent with what she's doing in her own internal processing and how she's communicated with the other person. And if I do that, my job's done. And if the other person wants to meet me and clear up misunderstandings or misperceptions in the relationship and get closer, I've put out that invitation. I can't make them take advantage of it. I can't make them accept the invitation, but I've done my part. And so, as I mentioned, it's just another tool that's available on whyagain.org. And thank you, Urate, for the testimonial that it was useful, and for mentioning the support groups. We meet on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. It's available through Zoom. It is a very, I find it to be a very respectful, loving community, and a lot of good work gets done there. It's from 6:30 to 9 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. Most every Tuesday and Thursday, barring there being a holiday. And I think we've even had one in the past 17 years of our Tuesday night meetings. We've had one meeting that didn't happen simply because of technical difficulties, since we've gone to the full Zoom format since coronavirus restrictions have taken place. And so if you or someone you know might want to take advantage of that, please go to the website at mindshiftersacademy.org and or pass that information along to somebody that you know might want to benefit from it. And join us Tuesdays and Thursday nights from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. So that's our first hour show for today. We've got another hour coming up with Michael and Jeannie. And I will remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Welcome, Jeannie Rice.
Thank you, Dr. Tim. Appreciate you.
Hope you had a lovely weekend and a great show.
Thank you. I did.